Hello, happy Friday. Welcome. If you're new around here, my name is Ashley. I make food and recipes over at Big Flavors from a Tiny Kitchen. That's bigflavorstinyKitchen.com. I'm on social media at Big Flavors, on Twitter at Big Flavors Blog, and most Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern, I make something live to show you hopefully how easy it is, or sometimes I make more complicated things, but today's is a super easy recipe. Hello, Mom. So today's a really super easy recipe. It's one that my father-in-law used to make all the time, and I would make it with him when we lived there. I just posted, hi, Amy. I just posted the recipe on my website, so I'm going to put the link in the chat. So this was a little bit of a hard post for me to write because my father-in-law, Settino, passed away. It's been 6 months now. It sucks. Super bad. But he was a phenomenal cook, so I've got lots of recipes that I used to cook with him, or I would watch him make and take like copious notes because he was the kind of guy who would just like throw things together and they would turn out magnificent, and like he could never make it again the same way. Like it'd be a little bit different, but it was always delicious. And so I learned a lot from him, but I also would write up what he was doing so that I could make them. Hi, Leslie. So this is a really easy recipe. It'll happen quickly, so I'm just going to, a couple of notes for you guys. For locals, I'm in Ossining. Hi, Claire. I'm genuine, just so you know, this is not put on. I genuinely get this excited whenever like somebody joins me. Hi, Rob. I'm enthusiastic about a lot of things. Anyway, especially food. If you're local, I'm up in Westchester County, New York. I'm in Ossining. So if you are in the vicinity, this weekend, not cooking related, but there will be food trucks and a beer truck there on Saturday, September 21st, 3:30 to 8 p.m., Bedford Hills Memorial Park. They're having the Bedford Trifesta. My husband's band, Jake and the Mountain Men, will be playing at 6:30. They're closing the show. So there's like live music. There's a kids area with like inflatable stuff and rides. And it was a blast last year. There was a bunch of food trucks. Some of the lines were ridiculously long. Hopefully they get that sorted out this year. But so we'll be there. You can, let's see. Well, if you're interested, let me get the link for you. I'll put the link from the band's website up here so you can see. And there's also like some video from last year that I took of them playing. So I popped a link in the chat for that if you're interested. Also, if you have a teenager in Ossining and you have not yet signed up and you want to be part of the Beams program at the library, Monday, Wednesday, Friday after school. On the Wednesdays, I'll be teaching cooking, so it'll be a lot of fun. We're going to be making some fun pasta salad stuff this Wednesday. Pretty exciting. And then lastly, second to lastly, happy early birthday to my mom. Her birthday is Sunday. She's amazing. She's going to be 25 again somehow. So I hope she has a great day. And I get to see her next month. She lives out in Indiana, so I don't get to see her too often. So that's always a nice treat. So my last event announcement is if you're local, on October 24th, it's a Thursday at 7 p.m., event finalized, but there's going to be a free event here in town at Speakeasy 10562. It's not a speakeasy, it's a co-working space that I go to sometimes, but they do a lot of after-hours events. So I'm going to be throwing an event cocktail party. There's probably going to be some cheese boards happening. Yes, I did get your age right. It's amazing because I'm, so I must be just 24 or something, right? So there will be an event. It's going to be free. Limited tickets are going to be available, though. I think 20 or 25 people at the most. And I'm leaning toward cheese/snack board demo. It's going to be all vegetarian. Oh, Sherry, I wish you lived in Ossining too. We would have a lot of fun, and I would totally make that elf wreath because that was amazing. That was it your husband tagged you in yesterday? Okay, so that's enough for my events. Next live will be next Friday, September 27th, and we'll get started. So is this going to be big enough? we'll see if this container will be big enough for the tomatoes. This is a really great recipe. My father-in-law called it bruschetta. I've heard people say bruschetta and other things. He's from Italy, so I'm going to go with him on this one, and I'll call it bruschetta. He would always make this before a party. Or just if we were going over to have dinner, there'd be like, we would just be going to hang out, and there would be a tray full of like sliced meats and cheeses and a couple snacks. Sometimes his stuffed mushrooms, which are amazing, and the recipe for that's on my site also. This was the best in the summer when we use garden tomatoes or, farmer's market tomatoes. I picked these ones up from, where did I go? DeChico in Millwood yesterday. It's kind of like a Whole Foods-esque kind of place. They have lots of great produce and stuff. But you can totally, I'm going to use a mix of the ones I picked up from there and some little grape tomatoes and cherry tomatoes that I had hanging out. I like using a mix of tomatoes because it makes it, it makes it more interesting. There's more texture. I like having a lot of color. And just tomatoes are one of my favorites. But you can totally make this all year round. You can use the grape tomatoes that you find in the store, or those Campari tomatoes. They come in a clamshell. Those I find are pretty consistently ripe all year round. So I'm just going to be dicing the tomatoes. This is, again, you don't have to be super accurate with this. I'm using about 2 pounds of tomatoes. And just you want to dice them consistently. Doesn't really, really matter. You don't want huge pieces though. So it doesn't super matter what size you use. But just so they're all approximately the same size. He's correct on pronunciation. Yes, so he grew up in Italy and then he moved to Belgium for trade school, and I posted a little bit about his background in the post for this recipe that went up this morning, but basically he went to trade school in Belgium to become a machinist, tool and die maker. And then he moved to New York when he was, I think it was in the 60s or 70s. So he's got a lot of good recipes. And he was just great at cooking. So he started cooking because his job, he would be going in at before the sun comes up, hours that I don't even enjoy at all. But then he would get home from work at I can't remember, it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So he still had plenty of time, and, he wanted something to do. So he started cooking. Not that he didn't cook before. I think at one point he and his brother owned a pizzeria in the Bronx. So he always enjoyed food, and it was, part of his life. But that's kind of when he really got into cooking a lot. So when I moved to New York, before I was married to my husband, we lived in his parents' basement while we saved up to buy our house. And so I would get home from my full-time job, not as early as he was home, but I would get home and we would cook and drink about a bottle of wine together. And we just had the best time, and just So that was one of the things that really got me into cooking. And then when we moved into our house, I started cooking for myself, and we'd have him over. And so whenever I was in his kitchen, I would call him chef, and we would joke that I'm here, and we each had a knife in each other's kitchens. And so yeah, good memories. And I have a bunch of his recipes that I wrote up based on how I saw him make them, because he's the type of guy who he'd be like, oh, I just do this, this, and this. And I'd be like, all right, but I could do just that, that, and that, and it wouldn't really taste the same. And a lot of times people don't realize when they're cooking, the little extra things they put in, or just, he would think, I remember his asparagus fritters, which I'm still perfecting to make them. I cite, he would think it was only a tablespoon, but it was more like a quarter of a cup. So, things like that you just got to look out for. I think I'm going to need a bigger bowl than this. But yeah, his stuffed mushrooms were another one that were really, really great. And I have he and I together late last year figured out how to make my husband's grandma's stuffed artichokes, and I have photos of that when we made them, but I haven't written that one up yet. And then there's also a couple recipes that he and I created together that aren't up yet, but will be. This recipe is really great to make in advance if you want. If you're just making it like an hour or two in advance, you can make this mixture and just let it sit on the counter. I'd put a lid on it probably, and until you're ready to go. Otherwise, you can store it in the fridge. It holds up for a couple days as long as your tomatoes aren't like crazy ripe. If you keep it in the fridge, I would take it out like 10 or 15 minutes before you're going to serve it, because sometimes the oil can kind of solidify a little bit, and that'll give it time to kind of come back from that. So I know a lot of people de-seed their tomatoes when they're making stuff like this, but we always kind of liked how saucy it got in the bowl. So I leave them in. You can take them out if you want. I don't like wasting that. I'm doing this over like a toasted baguette situation today, but if you're not into that for whatever reason, there are this would be great over like grilled chicken or fish, shrimp. Probably be great on steak, or just like by the spoonful. So there's a lot of things you can do with it, and you can even toast the bread ahead of time if you want, if you're planning, on entertaining or whatever. I did when I made this the other day. I saved the toasted bread that was rubbed with garlic in one of those stasher bags, little like silicone ones. I have a pop-up size one now, and I just left it sealed in there, let everything cool off completely, and then I sealed it in there, and then I reheated it. I just like popped a little corner of the bag open, and I reheated it in the oven. Like those things, I know I've talked about them a lot lately, but they're awesome. They're really, really versatile, so I enjoyed that. So this is super exciting, I'm sure, watching me cut tomatoes, but just to show you that it does happen pretty quickly. Just depends on how many tomatoes you have, and you can always add more or less, like whatever you have. If anyone else is growing tomatoes, this is such a good use for them. I didn't plant any this year because last year my tomato plants, I planted 3 little like grape tomato, cherry tomato plants, and they went insane. They took over everything, and it was like out of control. So this year I didn't plant any, but some of the seeds that fell from last year turned into plants. So I've had some like kind of surprise bonus tomatoes lately. If anybody has any questions on this or any other recipes or anything you want to see in the future, let me know. Or if you just want to like talk about whatever, local events, new restaurants that you're into, if you're looking for restaurant recommendations, there's plenty here. We went to, in Armonk, one called Mariachi Mexico a couple weeks ago, and that one's delicious. They make all their salsas in-house, and they have like really, really, really nice fresh ingredients. They grow a lot of stuff that they use also. Riveting. Yeah, I know. But like, it wouldn't be very exciting if I was like, all right, so I've already cut up all these tomatoes. I also don't have an assistant to do those things for me, so one day my son will be doing that. I'm actually going to preheat my broiler while I'm thinking about it, because you can grill bread for crostini. I like to broil it. I feel like my broiler gets quite a bit of action during these Facebook Lives just because it's a quick way to do things. It's convenient. You don't have to go outside if the weather's icky. You could also, if you didn't want to grill or broil them, you could sear them in a pan. work also. It just might be a little tricky not to get them too oily. Did you guys used to watch Iron Chef? Not Iron Chef America, but like the regular Iron Chef. Actually, I don't remember which one she was on, but there was this judge who always used to call everything was oily. She'd be like, I liked it, but it was a little oily. It was very oily. And it, like, me and my husband cracked up every time because it's just like, how could everything be oily? And nobody else usually had those same comments. So it's kind of funny. All right, so this is all of the big tomatoes that I have, and then I'm going to do some of these grape tomatoes. The ones that'll fit in this tool, I'm going to use this tool for. I've showed you guys before, but this is like a little, you just like, you put them in here and you plunge, and then it cuts them into quarters, because that's a pretty good size for this. Do you guys want sweet or savory recipe next week for Facebook Live? Because I have some peanut butter cookies that I made that I've been meaning to write up. It's a recipe I used to make a lot when I was a kid. Me and my mom would make it. So I could do that, or there's a lot of ways we could go. But I like, a lot of times I'll put up a vote, and I might do that, like a poll, to see what you guys are into. And it's funny because usually the people between my Instagram and my Facebook, there's like, usually Facebook is going one way and Instagram is going the other way. So I have to like total it and see which one got the average. Peanut butter cookies. Yeah, they're really good. And then I'll bring them to the people at the bus stop because we don't need all the peanut butter cookies in my house. All right, so basically, just cutting up all the tomatoes you have. Gonna leave a couple in there because you get the idea. But consistent-ish size, just to make it a little easier to eat. And then you could use shallots if you want. I'm gonna use, oh, that tomato doesn't look good. I'm gonna use red onion. And that you want to mince, so cut it up really small. Or we don't mind onion in my family, but sometimes people aren't super into it, but the longer that it sits in with the other stuff, the more kind of mellowed out it'll get. Feel free to make some cookies when I visit next month, just saying, oh yeah, I could do that. Could save it for then, or do it again, or both. Have a list of things I want to cook for my mom when she's here because I don't get to cook for her too often. And my aunt's going to be with her. I haven't seen her in a while either. All right, so just about a quarter cup of red onion. So maybe not even half of an onion probably. And again, you can always add more. You could omit this. You could use shallots. You could use different color of onion. You could use white onion if you're into that, or yellow onion. I like how the red onion looks and how it tastes. So I think probably about a quarter of this onion will be plenty for this. And I'm just kind of cutting it into little pieces. Rustic is fine. That doesn't have to be super consistent, but it does look nice if it is. So I have in the post, I have some tips on, if you're making this ahead of time, how to save things. And then also there's another crostini post on my website that's got lots of tips on how to make different types of crostini that you want to customize. So one of the key things when you're making this recipe in particular is to rub garlic on the bread right when it comes out of the oven and it's still hot. It like melts down into the bread and it's really, really good. All right. Ooh, my eyes are burning. My mom said she's not complaining about me cooking for her. Woo! All right, so right now, nice colorful mix of tomatoes and onion. Whew. That is a potent onion. All right. I'm going to do about a 1/4 cup of basil leaves and just, that was loud, thinly slice them. This is another thing, if you have it in your garden, it's a great way to use it. I would just pick out any like super tough stems. If there's really big ones, the little ones don't really matter. Just making little ribbons. I just kind of rolled them up together and hang on to them tight while you cut them. I always think of this episode of Martha Stewart Living that I watched, or is that what her show was called? Martha Stewart something. When I was a kid, and she would talk about chiffonades, like called. All right, then I'm gonna do a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. This is one of the times when I really do like to use extra virgin olive oil versus regular olive oil, because we're not cooking it. The flavor really, I feel like it makes a difference. So I'm going to do a 1/4 cup of that. And then a tablespoon of balsamic. Had to get another container. We'll see if I have a tablespoon left in this one. I'm such a beginner. I always cut onions incorrectly. I'm not saying that I've cut them correctly. I just, what part do you have trouble with? Is it the, like getting them to be in little rings? Let me know, because maybe I can help you. Because I did learn on, I think this was from Cooking Light. So, most people, if you want to do rings, like for a salad, you would cut it this way, like along with that. But if you want to cook the onions and you don't want them to melt into nothing, but you still want the pieces, you should cut this way. So like turn it that way and slice. They hold up better, because sometimes like if you caramelize onions, they just kind of like, they're delicious, but they kind of disappear a little bit. So maybe that'll be helpful. I'm gonna do 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And you can always taste it and add more if you need to. And a little fresh cracked pepper. All right, and is that it? I think that's it. Tomatoes, onion, basil, olive oil, balsamic, salt, and pepper. So that's all that goes into this mix. And then you just stir it up, make it real pretty. It'll get a little more saucy as it sits, but you can see that's it for this part. And this is really great. Like I said, you could put it over grilled chicken or fish or tofu. Trying to mince them into pieces in the easiest way, for the right way every time, that helps things. Yeah, a lot of people do they'll take the onion and they'll cut like into it like that and then go across to mince it. I find it makes it slippery. And it like dangerous. The other thing is, make sure you're using a really sharp knife, because if your knife is dull, you're more likely to have it slip and cut yourself. And it's actually worse to get cut with a dull knife than a sharp knife. So hopefully that was helpful. All right, so next, I'm making this for, I have a friend coming over tonight, so I'm going to plate up a couple, but I'm just going to show you how to do the bread to toast it. So I just use a 1/2 sheet pan and then a bread knife. The cutting board's a little wet, so I think I'm going to put another one on top. I should see like what the average number of cutting boards everybody has is, because it's sometimes I feel like it's a little ridiculous how many I have. All right, so baguettes, I feel like they come in lots of different sizes, but I have this one I got from, it's like half my height. I'm just going to cut part of it off to start. Oh, if you find that it got too hard to cut into, like if you buy it, because you should buy it really the day of or the day before you're going to use it. I bought this yesterday. If it's too hard to cut into, you can wrap it in a damp towel, either a kitchen towel or a paper towel, and then microwave it for like 15 seconds at a time until it's like soft enough to use. Because we're going to toast it anyway, but you do need to be able to slice it. So I like to cut it on a bias. So instead of going straight across, I go, it's a mirror, up at an angle. So for this, I'm going to cut it like 1/4 inch thick slices. You want like enough of a base to hold the weight of the tomatoes. So something like that, that's probably more like a 1/2 inch. Whatever, as long as they're about the same, because they'll toast at the same rate if you do that. So for a full baguette, you'll probably need to toast these in 2 batches because they won't all fit. You only want them in one single layer on your baking sheet. And like I said, you actually can make this ahead of time, let them cool completely, and then store them in an airtight container. And what I found is that if it's maybe a day or 2 after you made them and you go to use them again and they're still pretty hard, even after you warm them up in the oven again, you can just spoon the bruschetta filling topping on top of it, let it sit for a couple minutes, because the juice from that will, like, maybe spoon a little extra juice over it. The juice will soften the bread back up. So I made this a couple weeks ago and we had it left over for a few days, but it definitely, like, we couldn't chew through the bread at first. So just let it sit a little bit. Let's see. So just kind of like Tetris your pieces on the board. One layer. I have room for a little bit more. You could use a different type of bread too. It's just these are a really good size, like for an appetizer, because it's not like too wide of a piece of bread. Okay, let's see. Those onions really cleared out my sinuses. Whew. That piece is not going to hold too much tomato, but I'm going to toast it anyway. All right, let's get this fan going here. Okay, so got a layer of bread on here. I'm just going to do like a little drizzle of the olive oil, and then flip them over, and I'll show you, and rub. Sorry, I have a tiny kitchen. It's real. Don't have much room, but we'll reconfigure some stuff. Okay, so if the opening of your olive oil is kind of large, just kind of put your thumb over it to prevent too much from coming out at once, and just do a little drizzle over everything. They don't have to be totally saturated. You can use a brush if you want to, like, just kind of like a pastry brush, to just brush a light coating on. And then what I'll do sometimes is I'll just kind of like rub the oiled side together and flip it over. And to be honest, when I made these last week or the week before, I didn't even bother toasting the other side. I just toasted the one side. It was fine. But I'll show you toasting both sides. The first side I feel like usually toasts a lot faster. I'm sorry. The first side toasts a lot slower. So after you flip it over, a lot of times that second side will happen real quick. So be warned. Don't look away. Like, don't stray too far from your broiler. Yeah, and only bother with olive oiling, like getting any on the other side if you're going to toast the second side. They'll still toast even without it, really. But okay. All right, so these will have a little bit of olive oil on them, and they're going to go into the oven. I'm going to say like probably 3 to 5 minutes on the first side. I always set a timer just in case because I don't want to forget and then smell burnt bread and then it's like, what's happening? Yes, I can show you that stasher. Ooh. This one right now has half a bag of tortellini in it, but this is the one that I used, so it like stands up. And I just put, after the bread cooled off, I set them in here, closed, like squeezed all the extra air out and closed it. And then when I went to reheat them, I just turned the oven on kind of low and I just like opened a little bit and I just laid it down right in the oven. It worked out really well. Oh, and then tonight I have another recipe coming that, well, I have another recipe that I came up with. I had posted it on Instagram, like in my stories, just when I was experimenting with it, and everybody was like, really wanted the recipe. It's like, I haven't written it up or photographed it yet, so I'm going to do that tonight. It's got shrimp and scallops and capers and lemon, and it's really, really good, and it's pretty easy. So we're going to have the bruschetta for an appetizer tonight, and then we're going to have pasta, and it's going to be delicious, and apple pie because we went apple picking. All right, is there any other questions? Did I have any other links for you? If you're interested in my any of the products that I've been talking about, I have an Amazon shop page where I've kind of stuck everything there. I tend to put things we talk about on Facebook Live in the Facebook Live section. And so basically you're not paying anything extra by clicking on my link, but I'll make like a very small percentage, like enough people buy it, I get a free cup of coffee with it. It's great. So I'm just like finding the recommendations for you. Ooh, this one toasted up extra quick. It's only been 2 minutes and I can smell it. So you can see the side is already nice. Some of them are a little dark, but I actually like them pretty toasty, and I feel like it's looking darker on there than it actually is in person. I'm gonna flip these over and just give them another like minute. So just kind of flip them all. The pie that I'm making tonight, I made it last week too, but we have all these apples now. So I'm going to make a Dutch apple pie. It's one that my aunts always used to make, and I have my website, but it's been a while since I've posted it, and my photography skills have gotten much better since. So I'm going to re-photograph that today. It's one of my projects. All right, so I'm flipping these over. I'm going to put them in for just like another minute probably. All right. That got really hot. All right. Garlic. What I like to do for this, you're going to rub a clove of garlic onto the hot baguette. So when you just want to peel the garlic cloves, you don't want to actually crush them at all. So you can gently tap it with your knife to do that, or you can use this little silicone dealie. It's not actually what it's called. Me and my husband call it a garlic cannoli because it looks like a cannoli. So you just kind of rub it like that, and the skins come off real easily. And then what I like to do, what I like to do is just I'll cut off this very end, like the root end, to have some like exposed garlic, and that's what I'll slide over the toast. All right. Put a couple of those on a platter so that I can show you. Again, you want to do this part while it's still nice and hot. All right, so I've got the toasted bread here. I need that garlic tool. Yeah, it's great. My husband got it for me, and I was like, I thought it was going to be something that I didn't really need, but I actually use it quite a bit. So I'm just going to cut the little root end off of the garlic. And then be careful here because this stuff is hot, fresh out of the oven, but take the cut end and just rub it all over the garlic. I mean, rub it all over the bread. I'll see if, when I get to it later on, I'll see if it's cool enough for me to hold it up to show you. You just kind of push it in and rub it. You'll probably, for a full baguette, need 2 or 3 cloves. So it just kind of like melts down in. So you just kind of rub it. You can see sometimes you get a couple little pieces in there. How did we live before these handy gadgets? Things took a lot longer. And I don't have room for a ton of gadgets, so we're kind of picky about what we actually allow in our kitchen. But all right, so how can I do this to show you most easily? Well, I'm gonna do it here, and then I'll bring it closer for you. So you take, if you're serving this right away, take some of the bruschetta mixture, the tomato stuff, and just spoon it right on. And if your bread is a little soggy or is a little hard, you can drizzle some of those juices on there. So you get this nice bite. Really pretty, a little messy to eat sometimes. So we're gonna see if I can do this. At least you'll hear how crispy it is. Oh yeah. It's a really great, easy way to use summer tomatoes, but you can make it all year round. If you were serving this at a party also, you could do a bowl of this and then a platter of the bread, and then people could make their own. However you want to do it. So there you go. This is my father-in-law's bruschetta recipe. Well, he didn't have a recipe. I watched him make it. This is how he made it. And I hope you enjoy. Hi, Trina. I hope you guys have a great weekend. As always, any questions, comments, feel free to message me or contact me on social media. And have a wonderful weekend, everybody.